It's a powerful story. Can you imagine? How do you tell that to your kids before you have one of these books? How do you do that? You share the story. And this is the story of God's unfolding relationship with his people and his creation. So after Adam and Eve leave the garden, it does not get better from there. In fact, their two sons get in a fight. Cain and Abel. Leaves one of them dead. Murder enters the world, evil. As a side note, this is first 11 chapters of Genesis are the place where most people's questions come from me, especially when I hang out with the junior high kids for Ask Pastor Glen Anything. Here's my favorite question, and there's some experts in the room that you can ask. Bethany and Elizabeth and Pamela, you should ask them. Where did Adam and Eve's sons get their wives? You see what I mean? There's weird stuff in this text. And I'd have to do 10 more messages to explain that. But you should ask them. Seriously, you should ask questions of this text. But while we're asking questions of the text, can anyone deny the power of that story? Is it different than that? How are we stewarding this? Not so great. Sometimes great. At the turn of the 19th into the 20th century, people were being told, you're going to live a long time. And the life expectancy then was about 48, 49. And they were being told that by 50 years later, they'd be living to 70 or 80, and that's true. So we do some wonderful things. And now people are saying that if my grandchildren are going to grow up in a world where it's regular to live over 100 or 120 years. But I heard a longevity expert say, we can figure out how to increase biological longevity and age. But we're not sure what to do about the meaning of that life, the purpose of that life, the worthiness of that life to live. And so the Bible story gets it right in that there's something in us. And so it unfolds and it gets worse, and human population grows and it gets worse, and human population grows and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally God says, enough! Hey, Noah, you and your family, yeah, you're pretty cool. I want you to build an ark. What's an ark? Well, it's a really big ship. And you can read this story in Genesis 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can read the story, the unfolding story of creation and Tower of Babel and all this great stuff. And Noah's like, well, why should I build an ark? There's no water. I don't see water around here. God's like, wait. Because it's going to rain and rain and rain and rain. And when it does, you need to be in the ark, because anyone not in the ark is going to drown. I want you to stop for a minute, because sometimes I do this, we do this, we just pass over stuff like that. We are not talking about your buddy here. We are talking about the Lord God Almighty, who invented the entire cosmos with quantum energy and nanotechnology and dark holes. And that God said to Noah, I am going to disturb my natural order to the point where there's so much water, unless you're on the boat, you can't live. There's a whole bunch of questions out of that. Scripture says that the fear of the Lord is beginning of wisdom. Moses starts building the boat. It's interesting to me that the very first major engineering project that God gives to human beings is an environmental project. How's that? Because God didn't just tell Noah, you take your family. God said, and I want you to go out into the natural world. Remember where Adam went out and named all the animals? That's really cool. I want you to go find me a pair of all of them. Cows and monkeys and giraffes and lions and tigers and bears. and I want you to put them on the ark. So when the ark is opened up later, they can repopulate the earth with animals. Let me make sure you're not missing my point. God made room on the ark for animals and not some human beings. Whew, that gives me pause. If it doesn't give you pause, okay. Very cool. So Noah starts building the ark. Everybody goes, you fool. I don't know about you, but when you try to live a life that honors God in a public way, when you try to honor God in a life that you bring to bear ethical principles on marketing and human resources and energy policy and just war, when you try to do that, people will laugh. Do it anyway. Noah, family, and animals go in the ark. The door is shut, and it rains. And there's like 40 days of rain. And there's nobody left outside. And then the waters begin to diminish. Noah opens a window, sends out a dove a few times. The dove comes back with an olive branch, and they know, okay, the dove is close to land. There's some dry land for me. The ark lands, opens up the door, and God makes a covenant with them. Let me read portions of that. Retirement, glasses, all the things, Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of human beings, for the intention of human beings' heart is evil from their youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. That's the same thing he said to Adam and Eve. In other words, the old covenant, the first covenant, is still in force. Do that. I'm going to add a couple of addendums now. Here's the addendums. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth and every bird of the heavens, upon everything that crawls on the ground, and all the fish in your sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Here's a stipulation of this new extension of the covenant. I'm not going to kill creation again, but you might. God says the entire natural order is now going to be afraid of you. Is there anybody who thinks God was wrong? How we ever got to the place where to say the word environment somehow meant you were, can I say the L word? Liberal. The essence of the word conservative is to conserve. God says, you better care for this place because it's where you live. And I'm giving you the deed. And I will not flood the place again, but I can't promise that you won't. That is right there. I didn't say it. Stop listening to MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN, and fill your mind with what God has said about the way the world really works. Okay. Then it goes, here's another stipulation. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and I will require it from human beings. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of a man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. Can you say capital punishment? For God made man in his own image, and you be fruitful and multiply, teem on the earth and multiply it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your offspring after you. Hello, offspring. It's still in force, this covenant. And God promises never to send a flood, and then God says, and here's a marker. It's a rainbow. Every time you see that rainbow, remember that I have promised not to do what I just did. This is really meaty, weighty stuff. We live in serious times. So did Noah. So do we. And we bump into this covenant all over the place. It's a powerful thing, friends. God says the entire environment is going to be afraid of you, so now you're going to have to steward it very carefully. And the taking of life, you hurting another human being, now you are your brother's keeper. Oh, yes, you are. And this is where the principle of self-governance comes from. Government is instituted by God. Genesis chapter 9. Because I'm not going to step in. You guys have to figure out if one of you hurts the other one, you got to figure that out. And you got to figure out how to prevent people who might hurt you from hurting you before they hurt you. Government. God says, you, in all your darkness, in all your beauty, you care for the world. You care for each other. That is a really powerful and weighty promise. And what's at stake? Human flourishing. Shalom. The notion that your gifts and your talents and your dreams and your hopes are somehow attached to mine. And my desires and my wants are somehow attached to yours. And yours and mine together are attached to people on the other side of the room that I can't even see. And they're attached to people on the other side of the world that I don't even know. And I am bound up with them. And God will hold me accountable here for what's done there. And he will hold them accountable there for what's done here. So this week I was in a conversation with some clients. The first one was senior living, 47 communities, about 3,500 seniors, average age 82 years old. That means they were born at the beginning of World War II. That means they were teenagers when Russia invaded Hungary and then Czechoslovakia. Those are places where my people come from. And they were talking about all these messages they're getting from their suppliers right now. Fuel's going up. The cost of paper goods is going up. The cost of food is going up, which means the cost to feed 3,500 seniors is going up, which means they're going to have to dip into their retirement a little bit more, and they're going to get a message from this company, hey, we've got to talk about pricing going up. And then I got off the phone, and I talked to my client in steel distribution. You can't get further apart in the economy than that, except they're not. Because the guy in steel distribution said, Glenn, we're going to have our greatest year ever. Why is that? Because steel prices have gone through the roof. Why? Because pig iron comes from Ukraine and Russia. And pig iron is the essence of what you need to make nails and screws and girders and beams and cars. And it's going up. And then I talked to my client in cloud security. How many of you know what cloud security is? Some of you actually do. Some of you are pretending you do. How many of you have a phone? Then you are dependent on cloud security, trust me. And my client in cloud security said, Glenn, there's a lot more nasty people out there trying to make your internet do bad things. And they're on the front end of that. And then I talked to my client in private equity, and he said, well, our money was going to go over here, but now with the war, I think the money's going to go over here because the money's going to go somewhere. And all four of them said, you know, maybe the beautiful thing about this is that after this dumb war, we'll figure out that there's no such thing as my way, the American way, the Russian way. We are all interconnected in a way that we never have been before. And I was reading through the passages in Noah, and I'm like, man, I hope that's the case, but I somehow don't think we'll learn our lesson this time. It's about human flourishing and about that we are connected, that I am my brother's keeper. And we are the church. And as the church, we are called to step into this role. We talk about it this way here. We say we are Christians with a Lutheran perspective. So the Lutheran perspective on this is that when God told Noah, hey, you guys are going to have to self-govern, and that gave rise to government and culture, Lutherans, following a guy by the name of St. Augustine, said, well, it kind of looks like God governs his world through two kingdoms. The left hand of God, governments, education, the institution of the church. The right hand of God, that mystical union of fellowship of all believers across time and space that isn't institutionalized. And when the left hand of God gets it wrong, the right hand of God, with absolutely no institutional power, says, no! This is wrong. And every time you put money in the plate in this place, you are saying, no! There's a better way. Check this out.
My name is Dr. Rasamana Salandin Harrison, and I am a surgeon and medical director of Shepherd-Naperville Lutheran Hospital here in Nansirabe, Madagascar. The mission of the hospital is to heal and provide care for patients, but also to spread the gospel. We share the word of God to each patient coming through our doors and along with the staff. Our slogan is we perform treatment, but Jesus heals. Madagascar does not have any type of public health care system. When being treated, patients have to buy the prescribed medicine first, then pay for their treatment, and only they can be cared for this. This is not the case for the Shepherd-Naperville Lutheran Hospital. We strive to fulfill our mission by spreading the gospel and providing care. COVID-19 was extremely difficult for us. First reason is the economic situation in Madagascar became worse than it already was. The cost of supplies were increased by a large amount, but we could not increase our prices because we know that we can't pass those costs to our patients, which are already suffering because of economic situation. We treat close to 200,000 of patients every year and do around 1,000 of surgeries every year too. Reason being we are successful is because through Christ we care for our patients first, even though it is not financially profitable. Our mission is what drives us. Cynthia Engel first passed by the hospital in 1993. And along with the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Naperville, they have been a donor of the poor funds used to pay the bills of those who cannot truly afford to pay. We do not know when life will become better for the people of Madagascar, but with Christ we always have hope. I can say that we would never have been able to grow the hospital as it is today and also care for all those patients if it was not for your support. And today, this is still the case. Once again, thank you for your prayers and support. God bless you.